Are the Oklahoma Sooners done at tight end?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Welcome to Locked On Sooners. The Oklahoma Sooners ended up with another tight end commit, this time John Locke, coming from Ruston, Louisiana. The former three-star prospect played the last 3 years with Louisiana Tech.
So that's what, 3 tight ends that we've now added out of the transfer portal with
Carson Kent, Will Huggins, John Locke.
Trying to figure out which one of them is the one that really jumps out on the screen. I mean, no shade or anything like that, but our guy Locke has 3 catches for his career so far, 5 targets. He seems like he's more of a blocker though, which granted, it'd be nice to have a tight end that blocks really, really well. Jake Roberts, to me, did a really good job. And Bauer Sharp had moments, but yeah, and with the new roster limits, it's kind of interesting that we now are sitting with 6 tight ends on the roster. And I wouldn't be surprised if we moved into, actually we got 7 on the roster and move into an 8th tight ends. I don't think they're done recruiting tight ends based upon the way that Ben Arbuckle is going to probably want to use one. But John, what's up with all these tight ends though? I'm still trying to figure that out.
My only guess here is that you're throwing numbers at the problem, and you're hoping that through that you're going to have good competition that allows somebody to emerge and take hold of the job. Because right now you don't have an answer. No. Nobody that you've brought in at tight end is a definitive starter for the Oklahoma Sooners in the SEC at the FBS level. Nobody that you brought in, not Carson Kent, not Will Huggins, not John Locke. And, look at John Locke's track record. I mean, he's got more special team snaps than he does offensive snaps. Now, that doesn't mean he can't have a role for the Oklahoma Sooners offense, but it's just like you mentioned. He's being brought here as a blocker, and I think he's being brought here kind of as a guy that can play a lot on special teams. And that's the reality of what you're going to get sometimes is guys that are going to play a lot of snaps on special teams and be a dude that you can bring in goal line packages, in 2 tight end sets when you're wanting to run the football. But I'm sitting here right now on January the 9th, and I'm looking at the tight end room, and I'm thinking if there's not another addition to the tight end room, then you got to think that Oklahoma is banking on the fact that Davon Mitchell or Kaden Helms or Caden McIntyre are going to emerge and be your starting tight end, be the guy that Ben Arbuckle thinks they can be in his passing offense, and they can be productive. Because what they've added in the transfer portal, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me, Jay.
Neither does it me. And I'm usually we're both pretty optimistic about stuff. Yes. In this situation, we're probably kind of neutral. It's nothing about it is a splash. And it's just kind of like, okay, you got some bodies that can be able to do some things. But we've talked about this before on the show. I think the one thing that I have recognized is that Oklahoma does like their own players a lot more than they got like guys in the portal, depending on the position. And we have people on social media, their complaints is they don't want to watch any type of podcast from Oklahoma, Sooners content creators because everybody's talking about defense. Well, we talked about offense 3 weeks ago when we were picking up a whole bunch of offensive guys. Now we've got the defensive guys coming down the line. But to be honest, John, we got John Mateer, the number 1 player in the transfer portal, who's following his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, who's bringing an offense with him, and then John Kuzieski, who's the quarterback coach or assistant there on the offensive side. You brought in dudes that will bring an entire new system in to be able to teach everybody. The good thing is the quarterback's not changing systems. We're not dealing in a situation like with Jackson Arnold and Jackson Arnold have to deal with coming in. The system having to be adjusted or trying to tailor it for you. This is the system that John Mateer ran and got 3,900 yards of total offense. Now we just need everybody around him to show up. But the tight end spot, I mean, you didn't use it a lot at Washington State, but at the same time, I'm really hoping that Caden Helm, as well as Cade McIntyre and Davon Mitchell, I hope they kind of show out to where they're head and shoulders better than everybody else and they actually get on the field. But John, still a little concerned. Now, Mitchell's a freshman. He's a true freshman, and he's about to be 18 years old. So I can't be too, because he was 17 years old when he came. He came a year early, which I'm fine with. That means that he was in a collegiate program and getting into strength and conditioning properly. Hopefully he did. But still got Cade McIntyre and Caden Helms, who've been dealing with injuries here and there, the Nebraska kids. I don't know, man. I'm hoping Ben Arbuckle has a plan, and it seems like he does, so I can't knock it yet. But what are we doing?
He's got a plan. Like, I'm not concerned about whether or not he has a plan. The dude's got a plan. Yeah. So I liken this in what Oklahoma's doing on the offensive side of the ball, which maybe we can dive into this more a little bit next. But yeah, it's like an episode of Chopped. If you've ever watched this show, Chopped, on Food Network, the contestants get a basket of ingredients that you look at and you're like, man, I'm not sure how they're going to come up with a dish with this. Like, they get some weird, protein. They might get some Fruity Pebbles added to it, marshmallow cream, whatever. And they got to figure out some kind of dish that they're going to put together with this basket of goodies. And you're looking at it like, I'm not sure how it's going to come together. But the person with all the experience, the chef who runs their restaurant in New York City, is looking at that and they're able to create some art out of this. And by the end of it, you're like, man, that actually looks pretty good. I want to eat that. That's what we're seeing on the offensive side of the ball. We got Ben Arbuckle, the master chef, who's got a lot of production with his offense over the last few years. He's collecting all these ingredients that everybody looks at from a 10,000 foot view, and they're like, I don't know about all this. And we're not letting the chef get to work in the kitchen, putting it all together. But I want to touch on this. I just went over and looked at Washington State's tight end snaps for the season. Okay, so John Mateer played 798 snaps for reference, okay? The guy that led the tight end possession with snaps, Cooper Mathers, he played 439 snaps.
Jeez.
The guy that was number 2 in snaps at tight end, Trey Lechner, wore number 23, yuck, and played 169 snaps. Okay, 23. Let's look at the receiving totals for the tight end room. Okay, so you had a tight end only have 19 targets on the season.
Oh gosh.
They had their top 4 target leaders, 101, 93, 49, 43 wide receivers. So what does that tell us, Jay? They're going to run a lot of 4 wide receiver sets, and they're not going to necessarily rely on the tight end as much, or at least this is the way I see it for 2025, because you don't know what you have in Davon Mitchell, in Caden Helms, and Cade McIntyre just yet. So you're going to rely on your wide receiver group to get the majority of your snaps. Again, a tight end only had 19 targets this year. The number 2 tight end had only 6 targets this year. So I'm not going to get all bent out of shape about what Oklahoma has or hasn't done at the tight end position in the transfer portal. One, because I like the guys. Yeah. You like the guys. Brent Venables likes the guys that they've got, at least the young guys that haven't really played. And I got to imagine we're just going to continue to develop those guys. And eventually they'll get on the field and they'll produce, and Ben Arbuckle will find a spot for them in the offense.
Yeah, and with the wide receivers that we brought in, and we'll talk about this more in the next segment, I think that there's something there. So, yeah, we would have hoped that they would have gone after some bigger name tight ends, while at the same time probably understanding that when they kind of positioned it of, hey, we really don't use tight ends like that, they're probably like, nah, we'll pass. Which, granted, I get. I wouldn't have either. I would have definitely, and I think Parker Thune from OU Insider tweeted out that this is a PWO, so prefer walk on. Can't be mad about that, especially if he can block.
Yep. Yeah, and if we want to look at Zach Kitley and Texas Tech and the tight end snaps leaders for them, Jalen Conyers, 429 snaps out of a possible 1,047. So he played less than 50% of the snaps. And Zach Kitley comes from a similar offensive style as Ben Arbuckle. They're part of the same coaching tree. So we're not going to put a whole lot of emphasis in tight end snaps right now. Now, hopefully, Davon Mitchell, you're not watching this because I don't want you to go anywhere.
No, we need
Ben
Ben
Arbuckle will find a role for you. He will find a role for you. But what is the offense going to look like? How are we feeling about the offense going into winter workouts with school set to start? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. It's saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, just got rid of Peacock, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're going to talk about Oklahoma's disappointing loss to the Texas A&M Aggies coming up in the third segment. But Jay, the offense is what everybody wants to talk about because we're seeing defensive additions. We're seeing them continue to recruit defense. We're seeing them retaining defensive guys. And the questions we're getting are, well, what about the offense? Well, what about the offense? Well, what about the offense? Well, one, R. Mason Thomas is going to help your offense by getting the ball back for your offense.
Or scoring.
He did that. I get where people are coming from, that they want to see a splash. They want to see Oklahoma go into the portal and get an Evan Stewart, get an Isaiah Bond, get a Zachariah Branch. But Jay, I'm at this point where I'm just going to trust Ben Arbuckle. This is a guy that knows what he's doing. He's done it, whether it's Western Kentucky, whether it's Washington State. I believe he's going to do it at Oklahoma as well. You see it all the time where 4- and 5-star prospects, skill position players, offensive linemen, it doesn't matter what position, those guys, they fail. They don't always pan out. And you see these 3 stars, these unrated guys, these guys that go the JUCO route, that go D2. You see them when they're good enough, find opportunities. And a lot of times, because college coaches can't see every kid in America playing football, the guys just fall through the cracks.
They do. And a lot of players they have to go to JUCO sometimes, for other reasons as well. That's one thing I always keep in mind. But John, we got the number 1 player in the transfer portal.
John Mateer.
At the most critical position in the game that's going to be coming over here with the offense that he ran to place himself as the number 1 player in the portal.
44 total touchdowns.
Which, to me, that's it. I'm good. 3,900 yards, 44 touchdowns. You got the dudes who's going to go out there and do that. Mm-hmm. You added a couple offensive linemen because you like the haul that you've gotten over the last 3 years.
Yep.
Now you get them healthy, you're good. And the best part is that young group we had last year, the 2024 class, they got a full season of experience. They're not walking in as young pups and being thrown out there anymore. Some of them got game and they're like, okay, this is what I got to work on. We've got tape. I know what to do now. So we've got ourselves good young linemen that are ready to play now. And then you're bringing in Fasusi, Fogier, Afalava, Hollenbeck, Hutton. You're bringing in more linemen, so you're good there. Wide receiver, I totally get. I would have liked to have gotten like an Eric Singleton or,
of course,
or Deuce Robinson. I totally get that part. But as long as John Mateer can get them the ball, I trust that Emmett Jones can figure it out with some players that actually came in here with production. Like I did some of the calculations and stuff from what we were losing and what we've gaining. I promise you, we've gained a lot more production than what we lost, because I think most of the guys that we lost, we didn't get much production from. So because of that, I think we're good when it comes to the wide receiver room going forward. All we need now is for John Mateer really to go out there and play. And it's hard to talk about, John, because we kind of got to see it now. We're at the point of, I just want to see what Ben Arbuckle can do. I want to see what Ben Arbuckle's offense is going to look like. I want to see how creative they're going to get. And we won't know about any of that until spring game. Then we'll get an idea of something to talk about. But then that don't matter until fall camp and Illinois State at the end of August. So for a lot of us, I can try to hype you up on this, but John, it doesn't make any sense. We want to see what Ben Arbuckle is going to do and set up the offense. We want to see John Mateer go out there and produce. And once we see John Mateer produce and throw it to these wide receivers, and you're like, oh, Deion Branch is catching a ball. Zion Kearney's catching some passes. Jaden Gibson's back. He's looking healthy. He's catching some passes. And then you add Giovanni, and then you add Keontez Lewis, right? And you get Isaiah Satania. Then Josiah Martin shows up out of nowhere. So you start getting them to produce. You're like, oh, okay. We do have a pretty solid offense, and I think we can with those guys. But until we see it physically happen, it's going to be tough.
Going back to the snap count discussion, Jay, Texas Tech had 4 wide receivers play over 700 snaps last year. That's a bunch. And if you go look at Washington State's, it's going to be similar, right?
Yes, they had 3 guys over 500 and one over 375.
Yeah. So the wide receivers are playing a bunch of snaps. And the thing that is intriguing about this group on offense, aside from John Mateer, aside from the running back room, and really including the running back room, to me, nothing looks guaranteed.
Nope.
I don't care what depth chart you watch. I'll probably put out a depth chart projection on Sooners Wire, but it's going to be me throwing darts at the dartboard because everything is going to be up for grabs. And I feel after a season that you just had, nobody can say I'm definitively a starter. Now,
I think the closest one you got is Burks. Probably the closest you got.
Probably.
Right.
But we didn't see him after the Tennessee game.
Nope, we didn't. Well,
we saw Jacob Jordan do some good things.
We saw him Missouri, and that's when
briefly,
he got the
yes, against Missouri. You're right.
Yeah,
we did see again. That's right. My apologies, Dion.
Yeah.
But we also saw Jacob Jordan do some really good things too.
True.
And so everything's up for grabs. I mean,
Ivan Carrion looked great in the bowl game.
Right. You have guys that maybe have edged some things out in some position battles, like a Troy Everett.
Yeah.
But to me, and maybe John Mateer comes in with a little bit of an edge at quarterback because thanks to Oklahoma, you're paying him to come be your starting quarterback. Basically. But everything else to me is, come win a job. And isn't that what we want, right? We want competition. We want guys to go compete for a job and not just be handed things. To me, that's like that's what I see a lot of Oklahoma fans talk about a lot, is they want guys to not be handed anything. They want them to come in and earn something. Like Baker Mayfield had to go earn a job, you know? And so I'm content with where we're at because again, everybody that's on the offensive side of the ball is going to look at the depth chart and be like, you know what? I'm going to go take that spot.
Yep.
And you're going to get competition, and that competition is going to breed excellence.
And that's exactly the best part about like John Mateer and hearing him even talk about it, right? He's pointed out the excellence that we've seen at quarterback at Oklahoma and how, he wants to fall in that light. The picture from when he committed was from 2020 when he came and did a visit on campus. And that tells you everything you need to know. He wanted to come to Oklahoma and be one of the next great Oklahoma quarterbacks. Never got the opportunity, and now he does. And I don't think he takes that lightly, which is the best part. He didn't take it lightly at all. He's going to go out there and ball. Now, as you mentioned, John, which is perfect, we got to break down a lot of this position group because you probably got 8 dudes at wide receiver that's going to be fighting for roughly 4 spots.
Yep.
And maybe 3 in a lot of situations because you're going to bring in tight ends here and there. I can totally see in a lot of them circumstances, man, from Deion Burks, Ivan Carrion, Zion Kearney really want to get on the field. Jacob Jordan's going to want to get on the field as well. So is Jaden Gibson. And then you go with everybody else. You've got a lot more bodies than you think. You just need to see them not only be healthy, but actually make it throughout a season. If Burks makes throughout a season and he becomes John Mateer's favorite target, he's going to end up with like 70 to 80 catches and over 1,000 yards. That's something that can easily happen because of the way that we've seen John Mateer play ball at Washington State. So I'm not stressed about what Ben Arbuckle's doing. I'm not even truly questioning it yet. I'm just ready to see some of the product out there so that I have something to really talk about.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everybody's going to have to prove it.
Yep. Prove it year. Revenge tour. Prove it year. You got to prove yourself.
That's right. From the top down, from Brent Venables to Ben Arbuckle to the offensive staff, everybody's got a lot to prove. We're not sitting here saying Oklahoma's going to have a top 10 offense all of a sudden with all of these additions. I'm just saying give it a chance.
Yep.
Let the chef go cook the dish before you judge the meal. We're going to talk about a basketball game, Jay. The Oklahoma Sooners had it. They had it. They're this close. Coming up next, John Locked On Sooners. Thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners had an 18-point lead in the second half. They were up still pretty significantly with like 8.5 to play. They were up 70-59, and they got outscored 18-2 over a 6-minute stretch to fall behind and lose their lead. Still had a chance at the end, but just fell short. Literally, Jeremiah Fears with a 1-and-1 opportunity, misses the front half of it. A chance where he could have put Oklahoma up 3 in the closing minutes, or closing seconds, really. And again, comes up short. Man, it's just the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, all in the span of about, 12 minutes of basketball action.
Is it time to have a conversation about Porter? Is it time?
A lot of people have been wanting to have that conversation for a while.
Because it's been 3 years of him, and when it comes to conference play, this is kind of what things look like. And I'm not the biggest college basketball guy until closer to March. Usually around conference tournament time is when I usually really tune in and try to figure out who the guys are that's going to end up prepared for the in an NBA draft. And Jeremiah Fears was one of those names that was even being floated around as a top 5 pick in the draft. A buddy of mine hit me up in regards to it, and I told him, I was like, pump the brakes. We'll say top 15 for right now. He's like, oh, well, this outlet's saying top 5. This one's saying top 3. Pump the brakes, top 15. His last 2 games, he's probably dropped into the top 15 at this point. He hasn't shown us anything here going into conference play. Like the Alabama game this weekend was very embarrassing. I'm kind of glad that we didn't actually get and talk about it, John, because I was kind of like, this is gross. He finished the game 13 points, 4 for 8 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3. Now, granted, Bryson Gooden, he's cooking. He's making them threes like crazy. Out of nowhere. He had, 9 for 11 from 3? He wasn't really shooting much at the end of the game either. It felt like, and you had texted me this, it felt like nobody wanted to shoot the ball. Like everybody was scared to put up a bucket. The defense started to slack. They got outscored 50-39 in the second half. I didn't even know what was going on in this. I'm just looking like, what are we doing? Like, it didn't feel like there was much of a flow to the offense. Did they even run any plays? I don't know. All I know is people need to stop being scared of shooting the ball just because you're playing SEC basketball. You need to get back out there and start cooking some folks.
Yeah, and listen, Jeremiah Fears, Jalen Moore, Bryson Goodine, all 3 of them. I felt like they all were trying to just let somebody else have the ball in the final minutes. Like, that's not what you need from guys that like Goodine, who is having a career night. The dude needs to want the ball. Jalen Moore, he's one of your best players. He's been one of your best players for the last year. He's got to want the ball. Jeremiah Fears, if you're going to be a lottery pick and a top 5 selection in the NBA draft, my dude, you got to want the ball. And maybe, listen, I'm not sure, but it looked like they were tired at the end of the game. Like Texas A&M absolutely wore them down over the final 10 minutes. And that's why they were able to cut into that lead. At the same time, like, that's crunch time. You've got to kind of pick yourself up. And listen, Fears made a great contested shot in the lane to kind of give Oklahoma a chance there in the final couple minutes. But the fact that you let it get to that point after having an 18-point lead, it just shows Porter Moser's team has got a lot to prove still. This is not by any stretch of the imagination a team that looks SEC ready, a team that looks like it's going to make a tournament appearance. You've got to be able to win these games. You've got to close that game out. And again, you had a chance. You had, your best player at the free throw line with about 30 seconds left and a chance at a 1-on-1. He hits the first one, you're up 2. He doesn't even hit the first one. And that's the part where, like, Jay Fears, man, my dude, that's where you got to get Kobe. You got to take that Mamba mentality, got to come in clutch. And that I just need more of that from my guy. Now, again, he's a young dude, should be playing high school basketball still. He's going up against some grown men over on the other side of the thing. He's going to grow up really quickly during SEC play. And if they're able to respond from this and learn from these things, they'll be a better team down the stretch. But man, this is a tough loss to swallow.
It is, especially when you're up 70-59. You have a big lead, and Texas A&M takes the lead 71-70. It's their first lead since it was 6-5 in the beginning of the game. So you've been in command for the majority of the game. The ESPN probability deal is literally all Oklahoma, and then all of a sudden, choop, drops down Texas A&M. And it's like, oh, guys, what do we do? How do you let this happen to you in this game? And like you said, the one thing you want out of Jeremiah Fears is you want him to take the ball, take control of the game. I think you need to take control of it a little bit sooner. Once you start feeling that lead slip away, either him or Moore needs to grab the ball and say, let me get going. Good Eye needs to find a way to get himself open to get another shot up. Keep those threes raining. You're 9-4-11. Why not keep going after him or whatnot? I'll give it to Fears at the end of the game that he was the one that took it at the top of the key and tried to drive it in and get some points. But man, everybody forgot how to dribble, and it kept bouncing off the side of their foot, off their knee. They keep falling to the ground. Next thing you know, you're getting tied up. Moore gets the rebound and he turns, and all of a sudden Coleman from A&M grabs the ball and gets a tie up, gives A&M the ball right back. And it's like, oh my goodness. It's like the awareness wasn't there. No one's peripheral vision was working, nor their handles was working in this game. Just a sloppy game. And Porter's got to do something about it. This is what killed me though, John. 18 turnovers for the Sooners in this game. A&M had 9. That will make you lose every single time. When you look at the box score, and box score is a great way to get an understanding of what you think the game may have went to. That you can go back and watch and see what the actual result was. Nah, this one literally told you everything. Fouls were about even. We shot 58% from 3, 54% from the field, while A&M was 44 from the field and 39% from 3. If I told you that, you'd say, how many points did Oklahoma win by? That would be your first guess. Then A&M shot 77% from the free throw line, only making 17 free throws, and we made 14. And I told you we hit 82% of our free throws. John, you would have asked me how many points did Oklahoma win by? It had to be close to double digits, right? Especially if you're out shooting them that well. No, not at all. Not even close. This was 36 points in the paint to 20.
Got out rebounded on the offensive glass by 9.
Yes, 17-8.
As good as Bryson Goodine was, Zurich Phelps was just as good. And in crunch time in the final 5 minutes, the dude was lights out. Texas A&M hit so many shots with a guy's hand in their face that I thought they were out there playing ball personally. They were playing some street ball, wanting to put it in somebody's face and tell them about it. Zurich Phelps, dude, that dude was awesome tonight.
He was. But John, 7 blocks to no blocks. Who do you think led the game in blocks?
Oklahoma.
That's the crazy part. It's like everything was lined up perfectly for the Sooners in this game. This felt like one of the football games. It really did. That's what it felt like. It felt like this past season, man. It's just, Can't start the season off 13-2 and then make everybody feel like, yep, we about to be 13-13 really, really soon. Because that's exactly what everybody's feeling like right now. They're like, yeah, this team's going up 13-13 in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's not going to get any easier because they're going on the road and they're going to face the Georgia Bulldogs, which, listen, they're not a ranked team currently, but they're going to be tough. They're going to be a tough team. They've done some interesting things so far this season. I know they've got a big win. I'm trying to pull their schedule up really quickly. They're 1-1 in conference play. And
that Kentucky win, wasn't it? Was it Kentucky that they played
recently? Kentucky. They beat number 6 Kentucky.
They blasted number 6 Kentucky. I mean, this ain't
John
Calipari's Kentucky anymore.
Mark Pope's a good ball coach, though. Like Mark
really
Pope in Kentucky's a good ball coch. The SEC, the top of the SEC has just been wacky because Tennessee got dominated by like 20 something or 30 something points by Florida. Auburn hung in there, barely hung on against Texas, who has been terrible this year. So it's going to be up for grabs. Nothing is over as far as Oklahoma Sooners basketball is concerned. So don't get it twisted. It's just, this was a really, really disappointing loss. This was a great opportunity to erase the memory of the Alabama game and get a good, really strong bounce back win. And you didn't do it. You had it. It was in your grasp. You let it slip right through your fingers. And now Oklahoma sits at 13-2 and 0-2 in SEC play. Again, with that road trip to Athens, Georgia to face the Bulldogs. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel over on YouTube, Unfair Sports as well. Follow me at John 9 Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you use social media. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner.